Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's success story interview, where we are going to be speaking with Lachey about their success in the match 2021. So, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely, I'm really excited to hear more about your story and learn some of the ins and outs of your process. So, can you tell us a little bit about your match, like what specialty and program you got into?
I matched internal medicine at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, great. And was that the only specialty you applied to?
I also applied to pediatrics.
Okay. And did you have a top choice between those two?
I did. I did want to do internal medicine because I do want to do a fellowship in infectious disease.
Okay, great.
So
It's
with the pandemic, everything's fitting perfectly into plan.
yeah, did the current um did the current environment in terms of like the pandemic play into that decision, or has that been a long time interest for you?
It's been a long time interest, just because living in South Florida, you do see a lot of very interesting microorganisms. So that has always been an interest of mine. And this just happened to be 2020 just happened to be a really big driving factor to pursuing this specialty.
Great. And so what sort of applications do you see that having in the future for you?
I think that my long term goal would be to work with the WHO or the CDC. So
Great. Wow.
everything's right on brand for for that.
Yeah. So do you have an interest in like global health in that case?
100%. I do want to give back to the different countries around the world, just because I'm, living in Antigua for the 2 years for medical
Hmm.
school. Really
Yeah.
opened my eyes to the disparities of, you know, first world country medicine towards in comparison with third world countries. So I was my eyes really did open when I was in Antigua from 2017 to 2018. So I really do want to give back to all these different countries.
Yeah, definitely. Can you tell us a little bit more about your time in medical school and what that was like, the transition there, and yeah, seeing those disparities firsthand and experiencing them, and if you're able to, address some of that while you were there, maybe through student organizations or anything?
Yeah, so I lived my whole entire life in America, specifically in Florida, and going to Antigua for medical school from 2017 to 2018. It was so crazy to me in the different organizations. I was part of an organization called Global Health with AUA, and
Hmm.
we were able to go into the hospitals and all the different offices, and the fact that they use they don't have EMR. They have
Right.
everything like paper, pencil. Oh, go to the file cabinet and find their record. That was so bizarre to me because everything is like, oh, I'll pull you up right now. What's your name? And I'm like,
Right.
yeah. So that was just so eye opening that in the late 2000s, that's what countries are still dealing with. And
Mm.
there's the lack of funding. There's the lack of physicians actually. There was kids with hydrocephalus, and there was one neurosurgeon between three islands, Antigua, Barbados, and Barbuda, and that was just mind-boggling because a kid could get a VPS shunt any like immediately here in America. So
Mhm.
I really understood how lucky we are in America, even though, with the pandemic, we did have some, shortcomings, but it's night and day.
Yeah. So you were involved in that global health student organization. Were you involved with any other activities while you're in medical school?
Yes, I was part of an organization called the Medical Scholars Organization. So I was a TA and lead tutor for my
Okay.
for about 3 semesters. I spent 4 semesters on the island. So Med One, I was more so a student, and then Med Two to Med Four, I was actively TAing. I was a lead tutor, and so that was really really helpful in terms of board prep, like step one
Yeah.
prep, because I was constantly reviewing things.
Yeah. Do you feel like those experiences helped in terms of getting residency interviews, or were they brought up during your interviews at all?
Yeah, so it was brought up every single volunteer organization and opportunity that I put on my ERAS was brought up, like every single interview, especially when I was TAing and tutoring, because
Yeah.
they residency programs really do like to see that you actively were involved. Obviously, the workload and studying, individually is very important, and they do want you to put that forth. But having the opportunity to teach other people is amazing, just because as a resident you are going to be teaching the medical students, and they want
Right.
to see that you do have a little bit of academia behind, under your belt. So that was really important.
Definitely. And when you were getting started with the ARIS application process, what sort of avenues were you going through to help prepare and get started with either your supporting documents or the ARIS application or finding out which programs to apply to? Did you kind of do that on your own or how did that work for you?
I definitely utilized Match a Resident because I didn't understand the differences of, like, where should I apply? I am an IMG, but I am American, so I don't need a visa or anything like that. So
Mhm.
the Match a Resident platform was amazing, especially in terms of the interview scheduling aspect and being able to
Yeah.
rank within one platform. What I liked about the program, what I didn't like about the program, and the little ranking numbers that the platform has, such as, okay, I really love this program and I did all the questionnaire about it, and now it's ranked an 8.8. So now if I make it for it to be ranked highest to lowest on terms of my specialty, I built my entire rank order list off of Match a Resident. And
Right.
um, in terms of researching other programs, I did also use Frida,
Mhm.
just to get a little bit more of like the salary, all the good stuff about the program. So that was the main things that I used in terms of supporting documents. All of that kind of came naturally, just because the ERAS platform is really user friendly. So
Uh-huh.
so that was really helpful, because obviously this was a very unique match. So
Definitely.
I had to use every single Match a Resident webinar. So I used all of the different, like, oh, when they say hobby and fun fact about yourself, really actually put one, because they bring it
Right.
up in the interview. And sometimes your whole interview is about your interests. And that was my favorite, because it was more conversational and not like, okay, let me present a case and now tell me what you're going to do, which I did have. But
Mhm.
listen, Match Resident was amazing for me.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, definitely. So when you were in the interviews, were the programs sort of mixed in sort of the questions that they asked? Some were more serious and also getting to know you, or was there like a distinct difference between programs that were almost strictly trying to get to know you versus strictly trying to almost like get into you and like understand how, you would be in terms of like a stressful situation or a behavioral, type of analysis?
I think that everything was pretty much mixed. The majority of the ones that are the most memorable, it was, you start off talking to the program coordinator, and then you break out into your breakout rooms. Usually it'll be with maybe two chief residents, and then you go into the different program director rooms. Usually like the main program director was very conversational, asked
Mhm.
about my interests. If I did apply to different states, so they would ask, like, why do you want to move here, and things of that nature. And then the assistant program directors usually had the harder questions, um,
Yeah.
in terms of behavioral things, case situations, or just presenting cases and telling me, and I had to tell them the diagnosis and the treatment plan. And there was a lot of situational questions as well, such as, you have a problem with an attending, or an attending, states that this is going to be the treatment plan, and from up to date or another research article that that's not the way that you should do things anymore. How do you respond?
Yeah.
And just trying to get your critical thinking, as well as that, those under pressure questions. So it was a really good mix, but for the most part, with the climate of this match cycle, they really just wanted to get to know you, because
Mhm.
a lot of them really felt for us, just because
Yeah.
having to get letters of recommendation and getting all this stuff, and you're at home and you're not able to do all the things, the sub internships and all those things, they really did feel bad for us. So I think that for the most part, they were a little lighter on us than, past cycles.
Were the interviews something you felt that you were able to prepare sufficiently for ahead of time?
100%. I was able to watch a couple mock interviews and have mock interview done within AUA. They let us, they offered a few for us. And then if you really needed that extra practice, going through with some of your other friends that are applying was really helpful. And there's tons of books and tons of resources from AAMC that will, tell you the main questions that were asked. And if you come up with your elevator pitch when they ask you, tell me about yourself in 2 minutes, that really helps practicing what your responses are going to be, because they're going to ask you your strengths, they're going to ask you your weaknesses, they're going to ask you what happened step one if you had a lower score, but then they're going to ask you what did you do when you got it up 40-50 points for step two.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that it might have been better to have the Zoom interviews, to be honest, because you were able to control your environment. You were able to, wake up, make your coffee. You don't have to worry about stressing about getting the bus or the taxi to the
Right.
program. So
Getting lost. And
we did have a lot of pros for that in that case, but I was able to prepare all my responses or know, what I was going to say. So I
Mhm.
was never really caught off guard unless it was just like a case that I was like, oh my gosh, does this person have hypercalcemia? Like, what's going on?
Right. Were cases something that you practiced, at least in terms of getting an example case and then presenting it, just so you had the muscle memory, so to speak, for how to respond to that type of question?
Within my personal statement, I did have a case that really solidified my want for the specialty. So I
Mhm.
did have that case and a couple of other ones relevant to the specialty that I was interviewing with prepared in my mind, because it's not like something that you're gonna share your screen and talk about. It's because like
Right.
interviews are maybe 10 to 15 minutes and you're on to the next one. So I did have it in mind. And in terms of preparing for cases, I always knew that it was going to be something completely random, especially for internal. Like they can ask you
Right.
anything, cardio. I had a lot of poem questions because obviously with COVID, that was a huge question that was always asked. But I just kind of relied on my basic knowledge, and I've always been the type that I can usually explain a concept if I and maybe come to the right answer from that. Like all the ones that would stumble me, I was like, okay, so this is what I know about electrolytes, and they like to see that there's a thought process behind it, and that you do have a background info, and you are able to get to the right answer or disqualify wrong answers. That's a huge thing, narrowing things down, and they really do appreciate that. So, in terms of preparing for cases, I just think that it's impossible because you never know. You just never know
Right.
what to ask.
Yeah, I think what you did, or that approach of just, okay, starting to think about it out loud to
Mhm.
them so that you're sort of answering the question and figuring it out as you go rather than just staring blankly and saying, I don't know, I'm not sure, and then you're giving them the impression, okay, you're thinking about it, and you might even get to conclude with the right answer by the time you're done, talking out loud. And so I think that's really good advice in case somebody does get a little bit stumped at first, just to start discussing it out loud.
And I would always ask for a moment. As soon as they asked the question, I was like, okay, can I have a moment to think about that? Okay, this is what I think. This is why I
Mhm.
think that. I'm not quite sure because they never gave you like multiple choice. It was always open ended. So I was like, okay, can I get like, and sometimes I would, I pride myself on being a little funny. So I'd be like, is there any way I can get multiple choice on this? And they would
Yeah,
laugh. I'd be like, okay, that's an extra 5 seconds for me to think about it.
you're right. Yeah. So if next interview cycle is going to be primarily on Zoom, which is a strong possibility, I would say. What is your best advice for candidates getting ready to take all these Zoom interviews again, or online interviews, so to speak?
Honestly, I think visiting the AAMC website and going through the most asked interview questions. I know there's tons of books on, residency interview prep, maybe, looking through that, but the majority of it is going to be conversational, wanting to get to know you, wanting to understand your story. And, if you are an IMG, why did you take that route? What did you learn from that route? And in terms of volunteer experience, I had a lot. Even throughout the pandemic, I was able to pair with the National Student Response Network. So I had a couple admin positions with them as well. So they were very like fascinated that they never heard about it and what we were doing for for efforts for the pandemic. So that is amazing. Like that's amazing to bring up. And you can, and sometimes they'll start the interview. Do you have questions for me? I had millions of questions for them.
Yeah.
And you can even ask the same question to every single person. If you're nervous and you can't remember anything, I would ask them, why did you choose the specialty? What were your strengths and weaknesses in residency? Even your here. So that sometimes caught them off guard, like, oh wow, she really has questions for me. Just things
Right.
that I, just want to see how they answer the questions. Because to be honest, you're both kind of interviewing each other. You're trying to see if
Hmm.
it's a good fit, if you're gonna even rank the program, and they're trying to see if they should spend the next 3 years training you into the position that you are destined to be.
Hmm.
So I don't think that any student, and especially any applicant, should go in so scared and I'm so nervous, because to be honest, they already chose you. You have the interview, and you have to go in with that confidence that they're taking a chance on you. Out of this application season, there was many more people applying, because more broadly, because they didn't have to worry about travel. So
Hmm.
the fact that your application was even chosen, you're scheduled, you're sitting here, they already see you as one of their residents. They're just trying to solidify it. And that's how I went into every single interview. And I think that was monumental for me, because obviously you're going to be a little nervous, but I was like,
Right.
they like me already, so let me prove that they're going to love me.
I love it. And did you not rank any programs that you interviewed at?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did rank about four of them I didn't, and it was just because, just like the scheduling and some of the feedback and the messaging and the emails was really some like uncoordinated, or I just did not really vibe with any of the the people that I met with. And I just knew that, to be honest, I would rather end up unmatched than be in a program where I felt like I had to do everything, or that was completely disorganized, because that's just not the way that I envision the next 3 years of my life. So I made sure to not rank four.
Yeah.
So that was, and that's, obviously that was really risky, but I did rank about 15 programs, and I would have been happy. I mean, obviously there was ones that I really wanted, but I would have been happy being there, just because you need to know that you're going into something that's going to support you, that's going to help you. Because I do have fellowship on my mind. Like obviously residency is, I'm thinking about it, but like I do want to match as a resident somewhere that's going to help me be, match to a very competitive fellowship, because that is what I want to do long term. And that's something that they would ask. They would ask, where do you see yourself in the next 5, 10 years? And I would let them know that, like, I have my goal, I know what I'm doing. So I think it is really important. If you feel like it's not going to work out with the program, or you just really don't like anybody, because the 15 that I ranked, I was boom, boom, boom. We're talking, everything was great. Like I would hang out with them if I could. And
Right.
those four, I was like, it wasn't, it really wasn't working.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's a message that people really need to understand, which is if you match somewhere, that's basically a binding contract. It is a binding contract. And
I didn't know. I didn't know you were obligated with
right,
NRLP. Like when you like sign up and register for it, it's, if you rank this is where you're going. There's no like peace. I really didn't want you guys. It's not how it works. And I took that
right,
really seriously, because I remember hearing like through medical school, like people, would rank things and they didn't really want to be there, and they ended up leaving. And
right. Mhm.
I just didn't want that for myself.
Yeah.
And
And
also,
luckily,
oh, go ahead.
no, you can go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say that in terms of the disorganization, I do want to clarify that, there were Zoom links, so now they want to do Microsoft Teams, and now they want to do a different platform. And it was like, okay, guys, like, which one is it? Because it's really, you have to be on top of your stuff. You're going to get tons of meet and greets, happy hours, the actual interview links. And I just felt like it was really complicated if you weren't going to have it all in one platform. So if you're going to have like two, a program director interview and a APD interview, and they were both going to be on Zoom, but then the residents are now going to be on Microsoft Teams, and then there's going to be a completely different platform for the next one. and then they would change it like the night before. It's like you cannot get it's hard to be organized. Like I was on my email honestly from October 23rd when we submitted applications up until, we got the you matched and you matched here.
Yeah.
Like you have to be on top of your stuff because and then there'll be cancellations. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you guys can't get it together." And it's January, February. You guys have had a couple of months to
Figure
re-
this out already.
so I was like, I don't know about this. And then some of the residents would just be like, "Don't come here."
Wow.
So
That is
they
that's
some of
hard.
them are really honest because when the program director and the program coordinator leave, you're by yourself and they can't record it because of whatever the rules are. So it was a big deal.
Yeah. That's that's quite a statement coming from a resident, but I feel like they're trying to look out for other people's best interests. Like, don't make the same mistake that I did by coming here.
Yeah, some of them are really honest. They were like, "This wasn't my first choice. I am going to reapply." Um,
Wow.
and a couple of the ones, and I think I had maybe one that was outside of the match that I wasn't aware of. They changed it. Like they were going to send offer letters, I guess, outside of the match, and they would want you to withdraw. And that just wasn't an option because I knew that I wanted to go through with the match.
Hmm. Is there anything that you would have done differently if you had to do the application cycle again, or any aspect of your medical training so far?
I don't think with applications I would have done anything different. In terms of medical training, you know what? I don't have any regrets because I think that I did every single thing that I could do. Obviously, it was really scary. The pandemic last March, I was wrapping up my surgery rotation and I was going into internal medicine, and that was all remote. And I wasn't able to do any of the electives that I had scheduled for myself, and that was just out of my control. So
Right.
2020 made me realize that you just have to do the best that you can. And if you're doing the best that you can, you're really not going to have any regrets. And I think that I did every single thing to the best of my ability. And I'm so grateful for the outcome. And, to even be here helping with Match a Resident because I'm so grateful and so fortunate to have had that access to that platform
Mhm.
that I think that everything paid off the way that and worked out the way that it should have.
Perfect. Well, we're extremely happy for you and glad that it worked out. And is there any way that people can, continue following your story and your journey throughout your residency?
Yes, on my Instagram at Lachey Monet, LASHEAMONET.
Perfect. Well, do you have any parting words for us before we conclude the segment today?
I do. I just want to wish everyone the best with their medical journey and also with applications and ERAS. And always feel free to reach out. Match Resident was amazing. And I wish everyone the best of luck.